Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Those Astrology Girls. Today, we have our very first guest episode podcast. And I feel like we need a drum roll for this one because our guest expert is Nicole Doyle.
It's me.
Surprise! How does it feel to be our very first guest on the podcast?
I'm just so honored for this opportunity.
Oh, well, we are going to be diving into something that is really near and dear to Nicole's heart, and also something that I am just like so impressed that she has created because she, guys, if you're a human design nerd out there, she's got the Genius Freak channel. I don't like that name, but I will say that like this truly is such just, I think, a reflection of just how you really just like bring this genius that lives within you to life, and just your ability to kind of like spot patterns and just create something really special from just, I don't know, just perhaps your own experience. So I'm not going to say anything else, but I would love for you to introduce us to this topic, because who better than you?
That's so funny. It is so funny to have the Genius of Freak channel because, man, if I'd structured this the wrong way, then people would be like, okay, you're weird. Like, we have no idea what you're talking about. And I think for a while that was my concern. So what we're going to talk about today is called Seasons of Self. And it is a method that I created using astrology to understand our own personal rhythmic energy. And this came about because I created this for myself. I figured, what is going on with my energy at different parts of the year? I was working with a coach at the time who really was big into cycle syncing. But at that time, I was really struggling with my hormones, and my cycle was so irregular. Like, I had very long cycles after coming off the birth control pill that I didn't know when to expect certain bursts of energy or anything. And so I was really frustrated with this like very specific method because I was like, well, my energy doesn't work that way, and I want to figure out how else I can track it. And Rick Rubin says, like, when you create things for yourself, you don't care if they're super like successful or marketable or whatever. And so I used the system, created it, did all these things for me for years before sharing it with anyone. Also, too, I wanted to make sure it worked for other people. So I kind of did a lot of research behind the scenes. But I figured out this system using our astrology charts that actually helps us tap into our energy personally. Now, I'll be honest, my seasons, and we'll talk about this in either do Keelie's, do not match up with that of like Mother Nature's seasons. And that can really make us feel some type of way at different parts of the year. But when we actually tap into our own rhythms, then we're kind of like free from this system that doesn't always work for us. While we can still honor the earth and be reverent with like her cycles, we can really tap into our own.
Okay, so just to summarize, you have really been able to use astrology to deepen just kind of like your own understanding of your own personal rhythms and cycles in life. And specifically, that kind of like started with understanding your hormones better, which I think, as all of us astrology girls out there probably really are on just some kind of journey of understanding our hormones and how our body works, and really just like how we can, sync to the energetics. And I think there's so much for us to explore there. And it sounds like you, through experience and just your own personal experience, and also being able to just kind of look at other people's seasons of self, you've really been able to link this or have this like astrological connection with just the way that we're living our everyday lives, and even just with our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something to be said about like thinking about a certain astrological season and going, I love that time. Like, that feels such like a great time of year for me. My energy's always high. I feel great. I feel like I'm in the spotlight. And then kind of understanding, okay, well then, how do I feel the opposite time of that year? How do I feel at different parts of the year? And so by interviewing many people and looking at their charts and understanding my own patterns and tracking it, I was able to pinpoint a method that works for hundreds of people that they're like, oh my gosh, how did you know I felt that way at this time of year? Like, how did you know that that was a challenging time for me, or that I feel really reclusive, or that I just want to settle down or just kind of be with myself? And I'm like, it's all in the chart. It really is. And that was like magical to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I love astrology so much. If we think about it, the astrology seasons talk for themselves. We know Aries season is the beginning of the new, quote unquote, new year astrologically, and we wrap it up with Pisces season. And it's like, where does that energy flow throughout the year? How can we really ask ourselves, how does our personal energy flow through the same wheel as the zodiac?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about in astrology, collective astrology, and then you've got your personal astrology. And so it's kind of the same thing as like we have these collective seasons of like summer, fall, winter, spring. Okay, but like does our own personal seasons, like, do they align with the collective seasons? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But like, what are we feeling like in our summertime, right? What are we feeling like in our springtime? And so I love this concept of just kind of understanding our own personal seasons. And I think it's a little bit of it's such a different way of kind of understanding just our own personal astrology. Yes, we can look at, okay, my sun's over here, my moon's over here, this is my rising, here's all the areas of life. And how is all of this energy flowing over the course of the year? Right? When are we in a season of life? And so I'd love to get into maybe the different seasons, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, cool. If I think about the seasons, it's like, spring is kind of like a new beginning, a fresh energy. And then you've got that summer, which feels really like extroverted, and you're outside and you're just hanging out with friends. And, if you think about summertime, back in school days, it's like you got nothing going on. It's just like playtime. And then maybe like fall is when you're kind of like going back to school, or I don't know, like a harvesting time, and then you've got like a winter time, right? So like, thinking about the normal seasons, it's like, okay, well, how is that applying to our personal seasons in our everyday life?
So our personal seasons are playing into our everyday life all the time. And like you just described, right? We know that there are certain hallmarks that come with these seasons on Earth. Nature makes that very abundantly clear to us. But when our own energy doesn't match up with that, spring, new awakening, like say your winter, your personal winter is beginning in spring, you might be super excited for the trees to be getting leaves and the flowers to be emerging from the ground, and that new fresh energy that we just feel naturally in spring. But personally, you might be like able to accept that and excited about it, but feel like, actually, it's time for me to turn it in right now. Like, I'm just going to go into more of a reflective state, and then kind of like realize, oh, you know what? How can I honor this season while also honoring my own energy becomes the main question. Like, what do I need at any given time? And so thinking about these seasons, I renamed them because I think it's easier to think when we go between spring and personal winter and like that, it can become hard. But I always tell people, never feel like you have to use my lexicon because this is a new topic. So, just to put it in perspective, vision, sow, tend, harvest. I'm a gardener, so of course I went big on the whole gardening outdoor theme. But, vision equals winter. Sow equals spring, tend is summer, and then harvest is fall, just like you alluded to. And so when we have these 4 seasons in this way, you can kind of see how you could move through a season or all 4 seasons in a day, in a project, in a month, in a year. And it can happen all the time, and we do it kind of subconsciously because they all are about like this rhythmic energy. So if we think spring traditionally is when we've got this equal sun, equal night, right? So the sun is equal at the horizon, the summer solstice comes, and we've got that peak light. Then we go back down to the horizon line, right, for fall, where we have this equinox, and then we dip below with like a darker time, which is winter. And then we come right back up, and it's like a whole cyclical thing. So when we think of that from a seasonal perspective, what if our energy is doing the same throughout the year? We have access to these rhythms all the time, but how we move through it looks a little bit different.
Okay, so you're saying, well, I guess, okay, so speaking from like a life perspective, one of the things that we can best understand is like, which I feel like, okay, right now it is we're ending winter, it's like almost spring. So I could look at my chart and understand, and I'm probably already feeling naturally like whatever my season of self is. Like maybe at certain times of the year, I always feel myself like lit up a little bit more. And this is like a time when maybe I'm making new connections. And so like, I guess right now for me, I'm wanting to look at what mine is. I'm in my, do you know what I'm in?
Yeah, you're in a summer right now.
Okay, so I'm in my summer. And I guess, well, and we can get to that because I'd love to hear if there's kind of generally something that we could look at in our astrology chart to kind of maybe know like what seasons we're in. And I'm sure we have to kind of, to be able to explore that in a deeper way, we'd have to probably like get a report for our seasons of self to know that, right?
Yeah, so almost every single, and I've done this for hundreds of people now, that almost every single person except for maybe one, I think, has always had their summer or spring, so spring or summer, be around their birthday. Now, it might not be specific because if you think about it, there's 3 astrological seasons per season. So, we're cutting the chart, the circular natal wheel, into 4 and looking at your seasons. And so if you're thinking about this and you're like, oh, like when is my personal spring or summer? So my personal spring is when my birthday is. And that's just due to the concentration of planets in my chart, the way that things are aspected, and there's many things I look at. But for Keelie, her personal summer is when her birthday is. So she has, all 4 seasons, but right now you're actually in the summer right around your birthday time, which makes sense because, we talked about that main character energy in our birthday solar return episode. And that just makes sense because the sun, this is a luminary model. And so we talk about luminaries in like almost every one of our episodes. So it's based on the sun and the moon. The sun on a yearly basis and the moon on a monthly basis. So we can use this in so many different ways. So if you're listening, you're like, when am I, where am I maybe at? You have a good guesstimate to understand based on 1, how you feel, and 2, wherever, what season you're born and your astrological season for your birthday.
Okay. So yes. So right now I'm in my tend, right? It's tend. Is that?
Yeah, tend, summertime, because it's a busy time. Like this is when you're working, you're doing things, you're out and about, you're visible, you're in the sun.
It makes so much sense too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm in like my most outgoing self. I'm like signing up for things. I'm like going to events. I'm like, pick me, like, let me volunteer for this thing. Like really just kind of like putting myself out there. And it's interesting that this is all happening. So for me, like, I guess too, we can see in our charts, like when our summer began and when it ended. And you said I'm kind of at my tail end, which means maybe like the past 3 months, I've been kind of in this like tend summer energy, right?
Absolutely.
So I can really understand too, like, okay, this has been a time where I've been like putting myself out there more. And so that being said, then following this is when I'm entering my fall. So I guess I'd love to break down. Maybe we could start with, what do you like to start with? I guess spring is kind of like the beginning, like the sow energy or...
Yeah, I mean, we can either start with spring or winter. I kind of do it both ways. And so if we think about, let's start with winter for this purpose to just say, okay, winter is a really great time for visioning. It's not necessarily a time where you completely shut out the entire world. Maybe you do if you're really tired or you're really burnt out and you haven't been tending to your energy, but this is a time where you're kind of trusting in the stillness. You're trusting that maybe you need a bit more you time. You might not be as social. You might not be as visibly like on as you typically are. And this is a great time to say, okay, the past 9 months happened. What worked? What didn't work? What am I carrying forward? What's my vision? What am I dreaming up right now?
Okay, so it's like this, like, as you were talking about, I'm like, it's kind of like our own retrograde period, right? Like, it's almost like our own little 3-month personal retrograde where maybe like we're looking back on the past 9 months. We're really reflecting on, how that year went, because ultimately it's like our own year, right? Like it's our own seasonal year. And like that kind of marks the beginning. And maybe it's also, as you said, it's called the vision period. So it's like, yeah, we're looking back and we're also looking ahead of just kind of dreaming up, like, what does this next year feel like for us? And so you could probably even apply that like to business, right? Like I guess in business, it would kind of be this like visionary period of just, I guess, like dreaming up things, like slowing down because, and I think too, like a lot of times, when we think of our creative process, it is that space in between that is so important for, our own personal creative process. So is this winter period almost like the space in between each year that like you get to just like rest, restore your energy, like really just maybe show gratitude for all of the beautiful, opportunities and experiences and just things in your life. And then also really just kind of preparing for the next chapter, however that may look.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell people like, okay, if we think of traditional winter, most areas, at least in the United States, like in kind of more colder places, the trees do have no leaves. But that doesn't mean they're done. That doesn't mean they're not ever going to live again. It just means that they're putting a lot of energy into preparing for the coming months and the reemergence of their own leaves and how they'll bloom and do all of that work. And so it's like, can we trust that even though it doesn't look like a lot is happening in this season, that actually it's a very restorative, very important time to make sure we're rooted, we're grounded, we're ready for what's to come. And it like, I've had people ask me, well, does that mean I shouldn't do anything in my personal winter? And I'm like, if that's what you really need, yes. But if you need to launch something, if you need to do something, if you want to be on and out and publicly committed to things that maybe you didn't know it was your personal winter, this does not mean that you need to say, cancel everything. This is just saying, hey, you're going to have to be really diligent with your energy to say, okay, maybe before I would give 4 yeses and 2 nos. Now you might be giving 2 yeses and 4 nos because you need to concentrate your energy and it's going to take a little bit more from you because it's in that like you called it, the personal retrograde period to feel like, oh, I actually need a little bit more me time, a little bit more tending time to me before I go out into the world and really show up in my highest expression.
Yeah, I'm also picturing too that, maybe it's more nurturing connections. Like it's just those like nurturing relationships and like the people in your life that you feel really nurtured by that maybe you're going to want to be spending time with. So it's like, whereas maybe summer, it's like you want to meet people or you want to go out and do things. Like your winter, it might be like, I want to like really just have like those, not those surface level conversations, but really just like those deep connections that feel really inspiring and nurturing and, it's just like it's more about like what really makes you feel good, during this time. Like it's not about doing more things, but like it's letting yourself, it's having permission to not do anything that you don't feel like is going to really like nurture you at this time and really support you and just preparing your energy body for whatever's to come in the next cycle, which is spring, the sow energy, right?
Yeah, like, and you'll start to feel it as you're moving toward the end of your winter season, your personal winter, that vision time. You're going to be like, I have the itch. I have ideas. Things are coming. It's usually that last month, and you're feeling like, okay, you know what? I've had time. I feel good. I'm feeling ready to kind of start new ideas. And what I love about this swing period between specifically winter and spring is having that ability to start feeling that happen. That's that one warm day in winter where you're like, oh my gosh, like I know it's soon, it's coming. Like that's the energy you start to feel build in your own life and you start to get really excited. And so spring season, it's all about ramping up. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? What seeds are asking to be planted? What are you bringing into the world? Now, this isn't a time that things necessarily fully come to fruition, like, all the fruit is ready. This is a time where you're actually focusing on planning, executing more tedious tasks, things like that, where you're like, okay, how would this work logistically? Funny enough, Keelie and I both have the same seasons, even though our birthdays are totally different times of the year. And this was when those astrology girls was born in our minds. And on the Zoom call, we were like,
So cool.
oh, we could do this. And it was right in our own personal springs. And so we were like planting the seed. And it was like right as we were about to swing into our personal summer that we actually clicked launch, that we did that.
That is so interesting because, yeah, like what if I'm in my personal spring, which I was like, oh my gosh, Nicole, we should totally do this. And like, let's say you were in your winter, it might have been like, well, let me feel into this for a bit. Like, let me just kind of sit with what this would mean. Like, maybe it would just be like, it's so interesting. But because we were both in our spring, it was like, yes, let's do it. Let's go for it. And we got way too ahead of ourselves really fast. We were like, ooh, us projectors need to scale it back. We had very lofty plans for the launch of this podcast, you guys. And then we got real with ourselves and we were like, okay, we don't need to do more. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see how, so in the spring, it's like we're really coming up with ideas, we're planning. I'm kind of sensing like a Virgo energy, at least my personal Virgo is like really coming online. Like let's get into the details of like what really is kind of like we're wanting to create. So it's, yeah, having those ideas and then kind of putting the pen to paper and like creating a plan for that. Is that right?
Exactly. And like you're noticing like things are starting to like emerge and they're actually like budding up, like almost like a plant. If you like look at the branches, they're completely bare one day. And then the next day you're kind of like seeing all these little green dots on them. You're like, oh my gosh, they're going to have leaves soon. And like that's that energy of spring. It's like overnight, a seed that you've planted could totally germinate. It could make itself known and you could be like, this is perfect. Now, how do I plan for this? How do I actually make this happen? And spring is just asking you to trust in those like new ideas, those awakenings, those moments of excitement. But I always tell people like, if you ever see a garden, right? Like most people don't completely bulldoze their garden every single year and start fresh. Like they have mature shrubs and trees and things like that. And so spring is kind of a time where you're like, I never noticed that bare area here. It would be really nice if I had like a rose bush. And that's like spring's like thinking like, okay, I have space to think about this and I'm feeling inspired. So how can I actually ramp things up and make it good versus like, I must start fresh every single year. That's not the idea of spring. It's all about working with what is and then planting what will be.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like you're planting the seed in like the spring and maybe like taking that first step towards something, whether that's putting the plan together or whatever. And I'm kind of even thinking too, it seems like maybe it aligns with like a new moon energy as well, where it's like setting new intentions, kind of like getting really clear on like what it is that you're wanting to work towards over the next year. And so then, or over the next month from like a moon perspective. But, so following spring, then it's like the summertime. So is that where you've put your pen to paper, you've made the plan, you've planted the seed, and it's like in summertime, like the seed is now bloomed, like you've watered it, you've fed it, it's gotten the sunlight and the nurturing energy that it needs, and now it's like bloomed and it comes to its fullest fruition, or is that later in the fall, or what does spring or summer look like?
Yeah, so summer looks like so many different things. So if you've ever planted a tomato plant, it's like you plant it in the spring, it's kind of scrawny. You're like, this thing's gonna make fruit? Like, what do you mean? Like, this is like, looks like it could blow over in the wind. I don't know. I'm like not very feeling confident about this. But you know what it needs? Tomatoes usually need the heat of summer to actually create the fruit, the plant. So it's growing rapidly, green and growing. You're like, where's the tomatoes? Where's the tomatoes, right? And then suddenly summer comes and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, we have way too many tomatoes. Like you're dropping them off on your neighbor's house. You're like, there's so much going on here. So summer is kind of like that time that things heat up and they happen really fast. And from a visibility perspective, this I would liken summer to like your ovulation phase, right? Like this is like where you're like, I look good, I feel good, like I am amazing, like I am desired by all, like this is the best time of the year. Like that's your summer, that's your personal summertime where you're feeling like just really, really good. This is a great time to be super visible, like Keelie said, starting new things, meeting new people, volunteering for stuff. If you are like wanting to film a course, please film it in your personal summer. Like it's going to feel so much better for you because you're going to have that energy. You know, summer is known for long, long days. It's also the time that I say like, you better work. Like this is the time to put in the work because you have this burst of energy. And throughout the year, this is your peak. I also tell people though, don't let this season pass you by so fast that it's done and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I had to enjoy that time. Like I was just waiting to be less busy, but like, no, this is actually a time to like enjoy yourself. Like summer, you know, it's beautiful. Think of the weather, but you can be whenever in your year, and also to get a lot of things done.
And so then thinking about beyond that, and well, I guess first I'll say too, as you were talking, I was thinking how it's like, okay, it's like the farmer who takes his tomatoes to the farmer's market. It's like, let me put these on display. Like, they're ready to be purchased and like, they're just, yeah, like come buy my tomatoes.
Yeah. At first there's only a few. And then by the time you get to August, you're like, wow, the guy's a lot of tomatoes.
Yeah. And so it can be probably a really great time for you to put yourself out there. I totally feel that right now, which is why, I mean, in my birthday episode, I was like, well, I've been up and down this season, but historically, I've always felt really good around my birthday month. So maybe that's why I've always felt that. It's like, yeah, like this is my personal summer. And as you said too, it's either spring or summer. So it could be just a little bit of a different energy. It's like, okay, yes, like I'm out with people. Yeah. And I'm thinking too, like even if your birthday was in like a personal winter, maybe that's like the kind of energy where you're like, I don't want to do anything like ever, like every birthday comes around and you're like, please, everyone, leave me alone. Like,
and sometimes like the heat of the sun when it's around your birthday can feel like, whoa, this is a lot of energy. And so maybe you want to retreat a little bit. Like just because you're wanting to be on all the time in summer and it feels like a really good idea, one, you have to consider what is my vitality like right now, And then we can talk about extended personal seasons too. Like sometimes you're just in a longer season, that doesn't work with your rhythms, but it's necessary for how you're living right now.
Well, and I'm thinking too about transits and how transits, also play into this. Like, there can be, you could be in the middle of a summer and have a really, because I'm thinking how like the chart, if you're looking at your natal chart, you've got an area of your chart that is each season. So yes, like, well, for me, it's like, if I'm in my personal summer because the sun up in the sky is like in Aquarius or in one of those, surrounding zodiac signs, but then maybe there's another planet in a different sign, like a Saturn or like, I don't know, even like a Jupiter or something, like kind of moving over an area of chart and in a zodiac sign that's in like my personal winter. Well, maybe there could be just like some conflicting energies too that I'm being experienced. Like, do you ever like find that plays a role too in just how you're feeling in different seasons of life?
I mean, I personally do. I notice that with certain transits where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, so I'm about to hit like this year, I think later this year, a Saturn square to my natal Saturn. So Saturn squaring itself. And I'm sure that's going to feel different, compared to what I'm typically used to in that time of year. And for that time that Saturn's kind of squaring that that aspect of my chart. And squares, for anyone listening, we haven't done an aspects episode, but squares are a little bit more of a pressure point of an aspect where it's creating that harsh 90-degree angle. It's very strong, but it can also create a lot of pressure. So that's what that really means. Whereas like certain aspects and certain transits can impact our life on a longer timeline, if you will. And so what I look at Seasons of Self is the current natal chart for rhythmic energy, just like that you have access to from the moment you were born to the moment you leave this earth plane. That is your rhythmic energy. Like the seasons will never change, but like you're saying, they can change based on transit. So a lot of people who come to me for Seasons of Self are not astrology aficionados, so we don't go that deep. But like when my clients ask me like, I'm feeling this type of way, like what's going on? Of course we're looking at transits because they can totally impact your seasons and whatever you're feeling in your life vitality wise. Like how full is your cup, you know?
It's like flavoring. Yeah. So it's like every year my summer I'm still going to be in my summer. It is still the overarching same themes, but like there's going to be just like different energies also like playing into and feeding this summer energy. So it could just be like, showing up in different ways. Like every summer might have its own little unique flavor of what summer feels like.
Yeah, and if you're feeling like if you've had a year that was just like really challenging, or you're super burnout, or maybe you had to give so much and you really couldn't tend to yourself as well as you wanted to, that's going to flavor your summer as well. Like I think people who try to stay in like this extended or like push through in a winter when maybe they need more time to themselves and they're like, but I have to work hard, I have to do this stuff. So I'll use my own example. Last actual summer, was my final few months in my corporate job. And 2 people were out on leave. It was crazy. I was like, pseudo promoted, but not really. It was like awful. I had a ton of work to do and it was just chaos. It was insanity. And that was my personal winter. So my seasons are completely flipped. They're opposite. And I knew at that time, like I needed to kind of like turn everything else down and like really focus on this because I needed to do a good job to like kind of exit the way I wanted to exit, you know? And that was just, it required so much more of me. So when I left that role in my personal spring, I needed a few weeks to kind of like, okay, I did a lot in my personal winter, so how can I reacclimate before I move in so that come my own personal summer, Capricorn season, I'm not burnout and like crying and like, oh no, my energy, where did it go? You know, like that kind of feeling.
Yeah. Okay. So then I guess for the final season being what do you call it? It's fall.
I go fall or harvest. Yeah, like thinking of the traditional harvest season.
So for like the harvest period, which I guess I'm going to be entering into very soon, like mid this month. But yeah, I guess like what can someone expect? Like after a very outgoing summer, it's like, okay, what do we make that transit? If I could stay in summer like all year round, if I wish I could. Like it feels good to be this outgoing because I feel like I'm so introverted in general anyways. But moving into fall, like what does that feel like?
So fall is a great time to like reap the rewards from everything you sowed. So you put in the hard work in spring, you planted all those seeds, you had all those ideas, you started to execute on them, you really showed up and you worked for it in summer. And then this is a time where you're celebrating. Hey, I did a great job at this time. And like, actually, I love to say like, this is a great time to collect money. Like this is a great time that like, oh, all this hard work is paying off and I'm actually getting something for it. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get paid in summer or spring or the other times, but it's like, it's kind of that time where maybe you like created something in spring, you made it happen in summer, and then in fall you launch it. And everyone's like, yes, I want this thing. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I always say like our ancestors, you know, they used to have to like gather the crops right at the end of the season to prepare for the winter ahead. And so this is, while it's a big celebratory season and you're really like bringing in, you know, raking in the dough, you have to think, okay, do I feel like I've done enough to start to rest in a few months' time? And do I have enough money? Do I have enough resources? Do I have enough energy to actually do that and allow that to happen? So while it's celebratory, you still have to like do the dishes after everyone goes home, you know, that kind of feeling. It's a great time though. It's a really nice time to feel appreciated.
I love that. I mean, if you're a business owner out there or even like a coach, I mean, we should all be using our seasons of self to just know, you know, like how to really make the most and take advantage of just different seasons of life that we are in, which I love. So I'm like, okay, before Aries season, I guess, well, actually, so because Aries season is my start of my fall, but like, I guess, you know, I'm thinking about my personal summer and it's like, okay, it makes sense. It's like I'm putting myself out there, I'm signing up for things, I'm going to different networking events, like putting myself out there. And then it's like moving into fall, it's kind of like, oh, okay, like maybe now um I like reap what I sow type of thing, right? Like I'm now
Exactly.
experiencing kind of like the aftermath and effects of like all the good work that I did in my summertime. And so as these things are dropping in and coming in, it could be like, okay, all this networking and all these connections that I was making now during my fall, maybe they're now like signing up to be clients, or maybe like, new opportunities or partnerships, or just, I don't know. It's almost like, yeah, you're just getting to experience now the effects and the impact that all the work you did during your summer. Does that make sense? Is that
Yeah,
accurate? Okay.
absolutely. And what I think for business owners, you might be listening to this like, well, that'd be great if I could just work on a yearly basis of like one thing, right? And it's like, oh, that would be awesome. But we all know that that is not like the reality for especially the solopreneur, right? Like we're holding like a million things, we're juggling, we have a lot of hats that we wear, and like, we can't just focus on a yearly basis. And so I also do this for business owners on what I consider a micro basis. And so we look at week by week throughout the season. So not only do you have a whole season, right? So say you're entering your fall, you're going to have 3 mini summers, 3 mini springs, 3 mini winters, and 3 mini falls within that overall season, because it's a luminary based model. So you're going to experience these little bursts of energy. So don't think like, oh my
Ah,
gosh, it's my personal winter. I didn't do anything. I'm not ready for this. Like you're still going to have that rhythmic energy. And when you're doing business and like, you can't just stop for 3 months. Maybe some people can, but newer businesses probably cannot. We have to kind of like keep on keeping on. How can I actually still make this work? While then looking ahead for the year and saying, okay, how can I plan better for next year to really harness this energy? I can help you work with whatever it is now.
gotcha. So you have an overarching solar, sun-based seasons of self-chart. But even within that, so let's just like look at like a summer. You're gonna have 3 summers within a summer, three
Yeah.
falls within a summer, 3 winters within a summer. So it's almost like you can figure out too, like each of the weeks that are going to be like a winter-based week, a summer-based week, like a summer, great week, like love that. But even in your winter, it's like, okay, like I've still got work to do. Like I can't just shut down my business or just like stop living life for 3 months, but maybe you could within, the 3 month time frame of like a winter period. It's like, well, where are my summer weeks in winter? Because maybe this is when my energy is going to be a little bit more of like an extroverted energy. Maybe I can be a little bit more like, and just like it feels like a winter, just like a time to kind of be in our feminine, but then maybe a summer week is like a masculine energy. We can kind of like put on our, I don't know, just like hats of just, wanting to exert more energy and like get some maybe things done that we're needing to. So it seems like it's a really beautiful way for us to understand how we can balance our energy, even like on a weekly level within each of our summer or each of our seasons.
Exactly. And it's funny because it's like some people listening to this may just be listening to this for their own like understanding of like how does our energy work throughout the year. And maybe you don't have the luxury of planning your business activities. Like maybe you work for other people. And so you're kind of like, how can I use this information? It's like I help people use this all the time for like how social they're going to be, when are they going to go on vacation, what are they planning to do this year, like all this fun stuff on a day-to-day basis. But more importantly, actually asking yourself, what do you need right now? And tapping into that inner world of yourself and figuring that out. But then from a business perspective, this unlocks so much for you because you can really like think about what activities would I be best poised to do in this time of the month or this time of the year, and then do them in a way that's not really working against yourself. It's like working smarter, not harder, in like the most like silly way, but it really does make a difference. Because like you said, those winter weeks in your winter, you're going to be like, yeah, this is the time where I'm just like doing whatever, catch me in the pool, this is fine for me. That's where I'm at. I'm like watching the bird feeder going, wow, what a magical life. And then some weeks I'm like, you know what? I could do this thing. And so if you're thinking yearly basis, this is when we like launch signature programs and run like big things and like do this stuff and like mega business activities. But like when we look at the micro season, this is like, oh, I'm going to launch this masterclass or I'm going to have this new thing. And like, those are the weeks that you kind of like can work with that energy. Like spring might be like, you know what? Next month, I kind of want to do this. So when would I film it? How would I promote it? When could I expect to launch it and feel really good? And then when could I take that week off and just be in receiving mode,
Yeah. And so what about, I'm thinking about, if you're someone like how interesting it would be to also look at like a partner's, seasons of self chart and look at how that might be a little bit different and how sometimes you might feel like you're in a different season of life. It's like, why don't you want to go out with me all the time? Like, I want to go whatever, like, or let's throw parties. And they're like, no, thank you. Like, I'm in my winter, you're in your summer. But, how do you, I guess, have you found that to be the case, like in your own personal relationship with Mark? Like, are you guys in the same seasons? Or are you in different seasons? And is that something that you use to navigate? And then I'm also thinking too, even people with like kids, it's like maybe you want to plan a vacation, but like all of you guys are in different seasons, I guess, have you ever come across that or helped someone through that?
Yeah, because I've found that like a lot of women actually conceive or get pregnant in their spring, summer time. And it's not that it has to be that way, but some people, just like always like their kids have like similar birthdays and you're like, huh, like you guys always seem to like get pregnant at this time of the year. And maybe that's just like when they feel the most fertile. Who knows? I don't have any like data on that. But so then if you think about it, those children are going to have opposite seasons of you because they're going to be 9 months ahead or 9 to 10 months ahead of your season. So like it skews the family seasons in a way, or it adds to the family seasons if you think about it that way. So partnership wise, I love doing this for partners because it really helps illuminate things. Like for people, they're like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. These months of the year, you were like on top of the world doing all this stuff. And I'm just like, no, like let me be quiet and read a book or whatever. And it really helps see like, what does that dynamic look like in the home? What does that dynamic look like in the relationship? How are you sharing tasks and chores and just relating to each other? Mark and I were born 8 days apart. Our seasons are identical. And we really used to talk a big game about summer. So summer is our personal winter. So that's like our vision season. And we'd be like, yeah, we should like do more things this summer. We should be more social. We should go to the beach. We should do this, blah, blah, blah. Every summer comes, we're like, I don't really feel like it. Like, we don't want to go, like go down the shore and like have like a big party house with a bunch of people. We're like, no, that's okay. We'll catch you guys in the fall. Like, see you later. Have a nice summer. And we realized, how can we actually embrace this more? I used to feel guilt sitting out in the pool, just floating around, doing nothing. Mark used to feel guilty for just wanting to read books and like kind of, stay to himself too in the summer. And then we realized, oh my God, this makes sense. This is what our energy is begging for. So this past summer, he actually did it. He was like, I'm just going to let myself do whatever I want to do this summer. And that was a lot of relaxing, a lot of reading, a lot of just whatever. And he felt so good come fall, like his personal spring. He didn't feel this regret or this guilt for not being so social over the summer and for not like making 10 beach trips. You know what I mean? Like it was just such a relief. And it was cool to see that for him because he doesn't track that kind of stuff, So it can be really a nice way to like, I don't know, loop your significant other into energetic patterns or astrology in a way that doesn't seem so come have a reading, type of thing.
I'm even thinking too, I tell you what, Nicole, this year, the amount of weddings and traveling that my husband and I are doing is I'm like, it is out of control. Like, I don't think we've ever had a year where we're traveling so much. And now I'm kind of looking at my chart right now. I'm like, wait, so what season is that falling into? And I think some of it is definitely fall. Like, it's like mid to late fall. And a lot of it's in my winter too. So it's like half fall, half winter. So yeah, I guess for somebody who has a really busy winter and, they're maybe they've already got vacations planned in their winter or, they're traveling a bunch like I am. Like, what are some of your advices for sometimes when you're just kind of forced in life to be in a little bit of a different energy? Like, it's gonna be like lots of weddings, lots of celebrating in my personal winter. Like, for example, what are sometimes your recommendations for people who are doing something in the different opposite than their season?
Yeah, I say ask yourself, like, what do you actually need right now? And if maybe that is a bit more alone time, okay, well, how can you carve out that time? Even while you're traveling, even while you're doing this thing. Like, what came to mind instantly for me is like, oh, you're traveling somewhere for a wedding. Okay, maybe get there a day early or stay a day later and like book yourself a massage or like go to the spa, like when everyone's kind of cleared out and just like do your own thing. Or maybe like skip the brunch before the wedding or something. Like, pick the events that you really need to be at and go. And maybe you're like, hey, all the events are super important. Okay, so what's most important to you? Is it quiet time at night? Is it a couple days before you leave that are just kind of really like not a lot of activity? Maybe, this is going to sound wild to some people, but not wild to others. It's like, maybe that summer you hire a house cleaner. Maybe you take something really important or like that has to be done routinely off of your plate. Maybe you're ordering groceries online and having them delivered versus going to the store. So like it can be a lot of behavioral changes, but where this comes into play, we can change behavior all the time. We can be like, oh, I'll just do this thing and I'll change it and whatever. But then we have to look at the judgment layer of ourselves. Why should I should be able to go to weddings and do this stuff and clean my house and food shop and feel good and run a business, right? Maybe in the summer that would feel perfectly fine to you, but in your own personal winter, it might just be like too many things stacking up for your energy to manage, and that's okay. So it's like we can know this stuff, but then we have to start looking at like observing what judgments are we making about ourselves in order to actually make the change happen. Because you can hire a housekeeper, you could order your groceries online, you could book yourself a massage, right? Now I know this sounds all very luxurious, right? Like maybe that's just not in the cards, but if you start to judge yourself, like, well, why should I need all that extra stuff? You know, that's where we start to actually use seasons in a way that will really change the way you show up in your life.
Yeah, and I'm just even thinking too, maybe there's not a whole lot I can do to like, change how much I'm doing on these vacations because, for like weddings and stuff like that. But at the same time, the other areas of my life, in that season of life, maybe I'm not, yeah, like putting so much pressure on myself to like do a bunch of things in my business. Like maybe I'm like, I'm gonna have so much going on. Like we're doing so much traveling. And like when it hits my winter time or even just a little bit before winter and I start to kind of feel into that winter energy, like maybe just giving myself permission to like not just like try to go and do a bunch of stuff and like just like give myself permission to just let myself be in my winter and like relax more and just in between all of the traveling, just be home and read and maybe just enjoying myself more and not putting so much pressure on myself to show up in business too in that time if like it's gonna kill me to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And like maybe there's stuff now because you know this is coming that you can write or record or create that maybe makes you feel a little bit better come that time where you
True. It's like
can,
planning ahead. It's like, okay,
yeah.
during that time, yes, I love that.
Yeah, because that way you can be like, not everything can be done so far in advance where you're like, this is my current update or whatever. Like, and Instagram stories obviously like are pretty much in the moment. But if you feel like, you know what, I'm going to be traveling for a week and a half and I'd love to have some content that I'm releasing, well, what could it look like? Your whole service model is not going to change between now and summertime, so we can figure out like, oh, what can I do now to make myself feel more set up and prepared for that time so I actually can unplug. I can be there. I can celebrate the love of these people that are choosing to get married, and just like enjoy yourself.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking too, like if you're dating someone or even like if you're going on a vacation with a friend or whatever, right? Like let's say they're in an opposite season than you are. Like you're in your summer, they're in your winter, you're both going on vacation together. Well, maybe they want to be out reading a book, by the beach. And maybe you're booking yourself a fun excursion and it's like you're having like good old me time and like maybe you're on like I don't know, a boat, like just chatting with like new friends or meeting new people and like you're like, I'm gonna do this, you go read a book on the beach, have your sun time, I'm gonna go out, like whatever it is, right? Like or like that can be a good way to bring that balance into even like going on a trip. And same thing, just even at home, it's like cool. Like you're going to stay in tonight and that's great. I'm going to go out and I'm going to like have coffee dates with friends and like go to these networking events. Like there's such a way that we can find balance with our partners too, or whoever, where even roommates, right? Like if you're with a roommate and they're your best friend and you're like, let's go out and they're like, I want to stay in. It's like you can understand people in a different way of like why there might be just differences and sometimes like your seasons lining up.
Totally. And it's kind of funny. I just think of this podcast too. Like for us, those astrology girls, like we have matching seasons. So come summer, both of us, our energy level's going to dip significantly. And then there's also the extended season I'm about to enter,
I mean
which is
winter,
having,
right? Our
oh,
energy
we're
will dip.
entering our personal winters in the summer, because our
Oh, okay. So in
seasons.
summertime, we're in our winter, so our energy is gonna dip. Yeah, that's gonna be great.
Exactly. Yeah. This.
You guys, we might just like make that our in between season time where we're like, Nicole and I are resting. Like season two will start in the spring.
Exactly. Like summer solstice hits and Keelie and I are like, uh-oh, now what? And then also I'm entering an extended season of motherhood at that time. Like around that time, I'm going to be welcoming my baby into the world, which is kind of funny to be like, going from this like growth period to like all of a sudden newborn world in my own personal energetic winter. Same with Mark, my husband.
Oh,
So we're like,
wow.
oh, yeah,
I'm like, oh no.
I know. We're gonna trust in Mark's generator energy to get us through.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we're gonna definitely, I think, put in a lot of work this our personal fall, which is the actual springtime, to really make sure that we've got something going on, in those months. Or maybe like you won't hear from us in the month of July because you guys will all be vacationing and living your best lives. But you can think about, where do you see other people most active? Like you can kind of get a sense for this. Like there's a lot of business owners I know that like really show up in a certain way, and they have certain signature programs that they sell at certain times of the year. And while that's maybe more of a traditional online business model, I actually helped someone recently think about how were they showing up in their business, because while you can launch and do all these things at any time of the year, it's actually really nice to deliver something big in your personal winter. To actually have like, okay, I sold this big program in fall and we kicked it off in our personal fall. And now you get to know these people. These people are in your inner circle. They're like in your world, and you can deliver and still be with them in your winter, connecting on that deeper level. And so you don't lose that time. But I've helped people restructure things. I've even helped farmers restructure their crop plans to work with their own energy. Because could you imagine being a flower farmer and your personal winter is in the summer, and you're out there in the heat of the summer trying to harvest all these flowers all the time? You're probably going to be like, enough, it's just too much. So, focusing on those opposite seasons really help this person to really think about how they can be, one, profitable, but two, happy in their business, because flowers make people happy. They don't really make you miserable, except when you're harvesting something in July and you'd much rather be at the beach,
So at the beginning, you talked about how you initially started working with Seasons of Self for like your own hormones. So how, like if I'm wanting to use my Seasons of Self to better understand and track my hormones, like how does that play into it?
Yeah, so I mean, think of your hormones as kind of being like, okay, winter, that's like menstruation, right? That's the time where you're kind of going most inward. Follicular phase would be spring, tend summer would be ovulation, and then harvest fall would be like the luteal phase. Now, I think harvest fall is better than the luteal phase, if we're being honest. Like if you just think the luteal phase, you're like, oh, that doesn't sound great, but it can be. You can actually, work on things in a different way, but you're kind of winding down, right? Like that makes sense. So my hormones didn't traditionally fit this bill at all. Like it didn't work for me because my cycle was super long. But what I found was, oh my gosh, when I actually start asking myself what I need and tending to my own energy, you know what got better? My hormonal cycles, because I was just burnt out. I was pushing. I had like the giant ear noise canceling headphones on to like my own signals and what I needed. And so what I found was like my cycle didn't match with these at all, even when they got on track, when I had like more regular cycles. But what I found was like, I was like, why doesn't like follicular phase feel as good for me? It's like sometimes that was falling in my winter weeks. And so I had to kind of look at like, say, hormonally, I feel this way. Energetically, I don't feel this way. Doesn't mean my hormones are wrong, but it allows you to like supercharge this information. How can I work with these cycles and these hormones and like do the stuff? I feel like a lot of people do like content hacking for when they feel a certain way. And so maybe your ovulation time is your winning time. You're like, I feel so good. Maybe that falls in your personal winter. That's okay. It's good data to know. But what I found was most helpful was actually just listening to my body, listening to what I wanted to do, noting my energy patterns, and then saying, how does this fit together?
So can I tell in my chart like how it feels when I'm ovulating versus like how would I be able to tell that?
Well, you could look at like track your cycle and say, okay, if the moon, let's just say you're ovulating when the moon's in Aquarius. Probably gonna feel really good because that's in your summer.
Oh, because that's okay. So we're
Yeah.
looking at where the moon is, like the sign that the moon is in.
On
Is
a
that right?
micro basis
Okay.
will tell you so much.
Okay, cool. So yeah, if I'm ovulating and like the moon is in Aquarius at the time that I'm ovulating, then it's like, oh, I'm gonna feel really good because it's in, my personal summer. But like if I'm ovulating and it's my winter, like Like I might feel the complete opposite of that.
Yeah, you might be like,
It's
well,
like
I
the moon
look
is in
good.
Leo or something.
You're like, I
Yeah.
look good, but I don't necessarily feel like that. But if the moon is in
Gotcha.
Aquarius and you're ovulating, like you're on stage talking. Like this is like your
Yeah.
moment.
Oh, and that's what you were saying too about just even like if you were planning, just different like business things, it's like you're incorporating the lunar um seasons like within the overarching season. So that also kind of that's yes, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and that's where I can really help people fine tune. Like, you can look at this now and say, okay, what does my energy feel like throughout the year? And if you just look at when's your birthday, right? And think, like, okay, how is my energy there? Do I feel like I'm just coming out of a cocoon, or do I feel like I'm like full on out and about ready to go? Like, that'll kind of give you an idea whether your birthday falls in spring or summer. And then what I like to do is look at the equinoxes and the solstices and say, like, how do I feel around those times too? Because that gives you those like four corners of the seasons. And not everyone's season starts on the equinox or the solstice. Of course, like I help you figure that out when I look at your chart, but it's a good place to evaluate your energy. And then from there, if you're interested in like, oh, I want to know exactly like when the moon is in Aquarius, when the moon is in Pisces, like I want to know what my energy is like on a micro basis, that I can help you figure out by doing your whole seasons of self report. And that will like never change. It's like a one and done miracle thing that you can then use forever.
Yeah. I love this so much. I think Seasons of Self is just so fascinating and like wow, how like amazing and just cool that you just created this out of your own little genius freak channel. Like I love it so much.
I know I was like outside in March of 2020 and I just got home from a terrible project like at work and I was traveling for it and then the whole world shut down and I was like, why are there leaves on the trees? Like, what's going on? I live in the Northeast. Like, leaves do not really come on the trees until like late April, May. Like, I was not in tune. And I started to feel like, well, I feel alive right now, but like not that alive. Like, what's going on? And I started to track my energy patterns. And that's how this all was born because I was like, cycle syncing's not working for me. It's upsetting me. And plus, if we think about people who like maybe don't have a cycle or who are like past that part in their life, like Seasons of Self is a great way to still tap into your rhythmic energy in that way. And so, of course, you can stack cycle syncing on top of it, but how can we actually feel into our energy? And I remember feeling so lost at that time when I was figuring this out. And I was like, huh. Because come summer, I was like, I'm good. I'm ready to pack it in. I don't want to be doing anything. I just want to be relaxing. So I noted all these patterns for over 18 months. I was like really tracking them. And I discovered this and I was like, I wonder if this works for anybody else. And it did. And then I was like, whoa. And it's kind of funny. It took me 18 months to like ask anybody if it worked for them. I was like, how do you feel around this time? I was like taking polls at parties and like seeing how people felt and like looking at their astrology chart. Like it was really funny. But now to think like, that's also my line one in human design.
I was just thinking that. Like you're
Yeah.
1-3 in human design. Like, yes.
Yeah, I was like,
A lot
I
of
need
it.
to make sure this is right.
It's
Like, I don't want to
investigative
share
and
it.
it's experiential. And it's like you're not putting anything out there that hasn't been like fully vetted by like yourself and just like knowing that it's completely 100% accurate.
Yeah, exactly. And I always tell people, like, listen, seasons can tell you so much about your rhythmic energy, but you have to feel in alignment with that. The patterns, whether you're 12, whether you're 24, whether you're 36, 104, they will always be there. The rhythms will be there. But if you need something else at this time, that's perfectly okay. And that's how you tap into it. Like if you actually need more alone time or more quiet time, or you need more social time, like you need to really tap into what you need at the time before getting that rhythmic energy. It's like, it's almost like the foyer. When you enter somewhere, it's like, oh, what's my energy actually asking for? And then you step into the party of the season's party. So you can always ask yourself, like, how does my energy feel right now? Like you could guesstimate, even if it's not your astrological season, how you feel at any given time of the year, just based on your vitality. So you can always ask yourself, like, do I feel aligned with the spring right now? Or do I actually need a bit more harvesting time? Maybe you've really gone through it and you're like, I'm reaping the rewards right now. Like, bring it in. Let's go. Let's celebrate. Let's rest soon, And so you can always ask yourself that. Or you can get your report and you can know for certain and then you can work with it.
Yeah, we can also like track. Like for example, I'm learning how I am in my summer right now because I'm like I see how active I am. And this is like how I'm showing up in my summer. And so it's something that I can just kind of start tracking some of these themes of like, okay, I'm volunteering for more things. Like I'm showing up to a lot of different events and like just kind of taking advantage of those little opportunities during this time. It makes a lot of sense, Nicole.
How
Super
did you
fascinating.
feel? How did you feel when you were moving? Was that in your, what season was that in?
When I moved to Nashville,
Yeah.
we moved here. It was like December. I moved here in December. Um,
Well,
and
thank
so,
goodness, because that would have been your personal summer last year. Because moving when you're in a personal winter, whew, that would have been hard.
well, I think I was coming out of my spring. So
Yeah.
I was coming out of my spring into my summer, but like, I guess very quickly, I'm trying to think of when I first put myself out there. I think I've put myself out there for the first time like 6 months after like I moved here. So like in July, I think. And that would have been my winter though, right?
Yeah, but you could have been acclimating after a long time and been like feeling that itch. You're like, okay, like I'm ready to like be seen and be out here. Like, okay, but
Yeah,
you probably weren't like volunteering for everything, you know?
yeah, because I feel like when I first moved here, it was like I was integrating. I was like I was enjoying, I was going on walks and I was like getting to know everywhere and then I think, yeah, like you said, like sometimes in your winter it's like you're reflecting a lot and I'm like, okay, I really like it's kind of time for me to put myself out there, like, time to kind of like meet new people. And so I was kind of just really reflecting on I think just like yeah, yes, it's so interesting too because at that time I was having like a conversation with one of my best friends and she was actually like I telling me like, I've felt like a disconnect from you and I'm like, yeah, like ever since I kind of moved here, like I left everyone that I knew to move somewhere
Mm-hmm.
completely new that I didn't know. And like during my winter, it was almost like this reflection of like, yeah, I've been really disconnected. Like I haven't been really putting myself out there. It's been weird being in a new place. And then probably as it started getting into spring, in that like end of winter phase is when I kind of started planting little seeds here and there of like, okay, maybe I'll sign up for here. Maybe I'll put myself here, join to just different things as kind of like ideas. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really good example of like an extended life season. So you might have been a little bit more like keeping to yourself and figuring things out and just kind of acclimating and like rooting in and knowing that like, oh, just because I'm rooting in doesn't mean like nothing's happening. It just means I'm figuring out like what are my new conditions here. And so it's really interesting to think like, oh, you were moving in your spring summer, which like I said, thank goodness, because for a fellow projector, like
So
I'm
true. I
trying to
would
do
not
that
have
in the
wanted to be
winter.
moving in my winter. Oh my gosh.
It would have been so much work. Like it would have been like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. So yeah, it's just a really good case study of like looking at like a zooming in on a time of life and saying, oh, well, how did this impact me? Or like leaving your career, like and then starting as an entrepreneur and like figuring that out. Like those are all like extended chapters and seasons of life that we can look at and to understand like how we work in that way. And then when you're in a more day-to-day rhythmic flow, that's when you can really tap into these seasons and be like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm about to reap the rewards for all this hard work I've been doing. Like, how exciting. Like, we're both about to enter that season of life and of self.
You know what's so interesting is as I'm thinking about it, September has always been a month for me where everything new always happens in September. Like, I always start new jobs in September. Ryan and I, even back, when we started dating in high school, like we started dating in September. And I'm thinking about all these things in September. Like every time I started a new job, it was always in September. And I'm like, that was my spring, right?
Yeah.
So every time I started something new, it's always like in literally
Makes sense.
yeah, that's so interesting. So yeah, I would say it sounds like from here, one, you got to go get your seasons of self report so you can see, when all of your seasons lie. But like two, yes, like get your seasons of self reading, but then also reflect on all of these past things and like, wait, why maybe, in a certain month, like something is always kind of going down. It was like one of those things where I'm like, it's so weird. I always start new jobs in September. And then I'm like, oh, but that's always been my spring. So naturally, it's maybe there's always this energy of kind of wanting something new. So yeah.
Just imagining how good of a student you were, probably like sharpening your pencils in August. Like, I'm
No
ready
wonder
for
I
a
was
new.
school. Like I was always excited for school to start. I was like such a school geek, and yes, like buying all the agendas, like let's get ready for the year, like getting all of my books. I'm a nerd, you guys. I also have Mars in Gemini in the ninth house of like higher studies and education. So there's no wonder I thrived in college.
binders everywhere. No, I'm just kidding.
4.0, like, let me get to never missed a class. Like,
That's so funny. And what I think is so cool about that too, though, because you're a Virgo rising, that burst of energy. So like we talk about this in the report and we talk about this in the reading, that burst of energy you experience when the sun passes your rising sign is kind of like a nice little just boost in your step, you know, for the year. And so for you, that's a Virgo season thing. So you're experiencing that boost of energy right before your spring. Now for me, my rising and my sun are all in spring and they're all happening within like minutes of each other. So to me, I just get it all really important, you know, New Year resolution type feeling, all of the bursts of energy right around my birthday. So it's another fun aspect to look at, and I can help you calculate like when that would be exactly for you in your chart. But yeah, the chart and the report you can get on its own with a video companion, or you could do a reading with me and we go through everything. We start to talk about how you can integrate this into your life and make it personal. And if you want to go micro and you want to understand the business seasons for yourself, we can also do that. And I plan out the next 90 days with you, which is like really fun. I actually did one recently with a woman and she was like, I'm about to go skiing for 2 weeks. So like, what should I be doing? And she was in her personal winter. And I was like, that's exactly what you should be doing. Like, enjoy the slopes. Like, you're in your fall winter weeks, have fun. And then she was coming back and she was like, had a bunch of things she wanted to do. And it lined up with her spring summer weeks. And I was like, 2 thumbs up. Like, I stamp of approve this. Not that I need to, but it was just like a seasons of self, like alignment, synchronicity.
this was so great, Nicole. Thank you so much. There's like so many. I'm like, I could chat with you so much longer about this, but we will go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for just tuning in with us today as our first guest on the podcast. I'm like, thank you for tuning in with us when you are our guest. It's so funny. Yeah, I'd love to know too, where can people book a reading with you and go from here?
Yeah, they can get the report or book a reading on my website, nicoledoyle.co. And that's where you can get it. And plus, I'll put a discount code in the show notes, tag TAG15 for 15% off a report or a reading.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. We hope that you enjoyed learning about your seasons of self. There are so many different ways that we can explore astrology, and this is a really fun and special way to have a new look and perspective at your own personal astrology chart and seasons of self. So thank you all so much for tuning in with us today. As a reminder, we are now officially offering birth chart essentials readings for you guys. We are so excited to be able to offer this to y'all, so be sure to check that out. And thank you all again for just tuning in with us. If you enjoyed this episode, want to share it with a friend, or tag us on Instagram, we would love for you guys to do so, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.